This is Bryan Mills with AdvzrTek. On today's Dialogue 2.0, we have CEO and co-founder Nick Stamos of nCryptedCloud. Hi, Nick. How are you?
Good. How are you doing today, Bryan?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us. What makes nCryptedCloud unique is their ability to take privacy, security, and collaboration on the cloud without changing any of your existing cloud services that you do use. Nick, one question that I ask for all of our guests: what made you start nCryptedCloud?
My last company was a company called Vertisys, and we were focused on sort of protecting information purely for corporations and really mainly for Fortune 500, large enterprises. And this whole sort of trend to the cloud that I saw coming maybe starting about 5 years ago, and then services like Dropbox that came in, maybe about 4 years ago, and the convenience that I started realizing they had was wonderful, except that I understood that there was an issue around the privacy of the data in the cloud. And coming from a security background, I sort of understood that impact, as well as a lot of my previous customers were in industries that had regulated data: financial industry, healthcare industry, health insurance, et cetera. So I was sensitive to all of the regulations, and I knew that although they were convenient services, there had to be some sort of way to protect the privacy of the data, both for individuals and corporations.
Okay, thank you. One of the thoughts or questions I also had for most people when they think security, encryption, what really sets your technology, let's say, aside from the other technologies that are out there? And if you could explain it in layman terms, it would make it a lot easier. I'd appreciate it.
I think a lot of the sort of previous technologies, they sort of were in one of two buckets. Either they were meant for highly technical individuals, so you had to be fairly skilled and understand keys and encryption and which algorithms you want to use and this and that, and just too complicated for your average user to do. Or they were oriented for large sort of Fortune 2000 corporations. So they were meant to be centrally controlled, centrally managed, centrally deployed, and therefore they didn't really scale down or up into that environment. And so there was clearly a need both for, from my point of view, everything from an individual, because I personally sort of had a need to protect data, medical information at the time that I was putting in the cloud. I was taking care of my father-in-law, and it was sort of hard to coordinate his care a few years ago. And then eventually wanting to put my financial information, and then eventually, having it grow into the business side of the house. And there were tools that I used that I could use by hand, but they were too cumbersome and too complex. And it just became obvious we needed to build something simple and easy so that any end user could do. And if you knew how to use something like Dropbox, you should know how to use our tool just easily. So that was sort of the beginning of it. And really our focus is to take the same type of technology with the same level of sophistication that satisfies the Fortune 200, but simplify it down to an individual consumer end user. Now
that's, to me, I thought made it very easy, is that you're not replacing what I'm using. Most advisors or people in general have a habit of not wanting to change what they're doing. Yep. They work with one particular service. They might find a better service, but they just not necessarily wanting to change it. So they stay where they're at and kind of accept and say, oh, hopefully it doesn't get hacked or whatever it may be. Yep. How do you feel that your particular service can help the advisors, the insurance agents, and the financial professionals?
We knew sort of from day one, even in the enterprise world, the ideal solution doesn't make people change the way that they work. It simply secures the existing sort of, and supports the way that people work. And when you think about sort of security and privacy tools, in the past they haven't been designed that way, but they really should be designed in a way that is a natural fit to what you do. Because at the end of the day, if they really cost you time and cost you energy and cost you, impede sort of your business or getting something done, they're just not going to be used. It's really that simple. People will sort of accept the risk. And so we sort of understood sort of day one. We had and Dropbox was a wonderful example of taking technology that was fairly complex, that a typical user couldn't use, and make it easy enough for my mother to be able to use. So we took sort of the same philosophy to security, is take something that was meant for very large companies with dedicated staff and simplify it down to any sort of end user.
Right. That's one of the neat things, that it is very simple to do that, and it works not only on my smartphone, it works on my tablet, as well works through my computer or Mac or PC, whatever it is.
We also had to change the security model as well. Traditional sort of security models are what people call IT-centric. They're meant for somebody in a central group to make decisions on your behalf. And as an end user, you simply see the end result of decisions somebody centrally made. We know that doesn't really fit the market today. If you take something like Dropbox and you lock it down the way that you would sort of a traditional corporate IT service like SharePoint or something like that,
okay,
what's the value out of having the technology to be able to self-service your needs? And so we had to rethink the whole sort of security model and implement what I guess Gartner today calls, people-centric security, which is, you, the end user, are empowered and required to sort of, as you see fit, apply the policies so that you protect sort of your information as you see appropriate. And that's a very different approach than the past, but a necessary one to both secure the data as well as, make sure that you're still enabled to be able to get your job done.
Right, so you're saying in essence, not only the individual user can use it that has, let's say, an independent office, but also an entire team through an enterprise-grade service. Is that correct?
Well, yes, absolutely. Plus, remember, this service has to be usable by your clients, right? I mean, it has to be easy enough for them to use as well. So you have to think of the whole sort of, supply chain, so to speak, which is it's got to be able to work with, in a B2B situation where you may be working with other providers, right? So you think about your typical advisor, right? You're dealing with your clients on the one hand and needing to exchange sensitive data. You're probably also dealing with accountants and tax people and sort of other business service providers yourself. So you also have a B2B relationship there. And the technology is going to be easy enough where it can be leveraged across the board, because and at any given time, on demand.
Okay. Understanding that and understanding your platform, can you simply explain the difference, let's say, between what you do and how your encryption works versus what most people have heard of? Just for, explain it to me like I'm 5 years old.
What it really comes down to is the data needs to be protected in the same way that the bank, for example, protects, your information.
Okay.
Or any sort of financial institution. And unfortunately, although their databases and their mainframes and all their sort of back-end servers have all these protection mechanisms, so everything's always kept confidential and private.
Right.
When it comes down to sort of a PDF file that may have come from one of these very secure systems, once it goes out of these secure systems, it becomes hard to sort of protect.
Okay.
And unfortunately, when you start sort of distributing it into the cloud, it goes into even greater sort of risks, because not only are you concerned about potentially the business you're working with, the institution storing your data, accessing it, but then potentially you also have to worry about a lost device, right? As part of sort of cloud usage is not only to be able to easily collaborate with third parties, but I just sort of mentioned, to have your data at your fingertips no matter where you are. Whether you're sitting in your office in front of your computer, whether you're at lunch, with the client or a business associate on your phone or your tablet, or, whatever the case may be, or whether you're traveling, somewhere overseas, you got to get to your data when you need it on demand. That's sort of a requirement today. And so when you think about not only how easily accessible the data becomes, which is great, it also sort of magnifies the risks to your information. So we basically put an envelope. If you think about it, we take sort of your document, we envelope it, and then we make sure that you are the only one that can open that envelope. And then every time that envelope is opened, you get a notification that that envelope has been opened, so that you can also both control and be aware of what's happening to the information that you're liable for and have a fiduciary duty to.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate you telling me that and making it a little more clear, because, again, everybody mentions the cloud and integration and security and privacy and simplicity, and that's really what we're looking for. It's like, does it work? How does it work? And it is meant to be simple. Encrypted cloud over the next 5 years, where do you see your group and where do you see security going?
I think security, from my point of view, is something that in the past it's been a compliance tool. It's really there to make sure you meet your PCI or PAI or HIPAA or ITA or pick an acronym to meet those sort of regulations as far as information security goes. But it's really becoming more of an enabler technology. I mean, we really view ourselves going into the collaboration space and really supporting more collaboration capabilities. And if you think of cloud hard drive or cloud services as hard drives, cloud-based hard drives, one is it's sort of unreasonable to expect sort of the cloud hard drive to be providing security, right? We never expected, the people that make Seagate hard drives to provide the security mechanism. We knew there was somebody else that was going to do that, and that was okay. But we did expect Seagate hard drives to work with Maxtor hard drives, right? Today, I would challenge anybody. They probably don't even know what their hard drive in their computer is, which is great, right? It all just works. It's all just there. It has a certain level of quality that you assume, and it really doesn't matter what the manufacturer is because you know it's going to work sort of accordingly in that environment.
Of course.
We want to provide that same capability for cloud service providers. So today, if you're a Dropbox user, you can't really communicate with a Google Drive user, and you can't communicate with a SkyDrive user.
Okay.
So we want to enable essentially everybody to be able to communicate with anybody and sort of connect all these cloud hard drives and collaborate and do it in a secure way where you're always in control of the data.
That's brilliant. So you're saying to me, in essence, you want to be the in-between, the glue to make everything kind of work together nicely, and the end user doesn't really care. He just wants it to work.
That's exactly it.
And be secure. Now, what services outside of Dropbox do you currently, let's say, envelope besides Dropbox?
Currently, we only do Dropbox. That's what we began with because we really focused on the first platform, and we went to all the different devices. So we have Windows and Macintosh and iOS and Android support. We then sort of added all the enterprise features to make it friendly and usable for regulatory reasons so that we can meet HIPAA regulations, we can meet PCI regulation requirements that are there. So now that we got sort of all those basics done, now we're sort of moving into adding additional platforms. We're not quite sure. We were going to do, to be honest, Google Drive next. We've gotten very strong interest from Box customers. So to be honest, I'm switching between Box and Google Drive almost every day. But we'll be doing one of those two, and we'll have it out by the end of the year. And then whichever one we pick, we'll continue going and get them all done over time. And you'll probably see a new provider every 3 months or so once we get going with the additional providers.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, if I were to, ask you today, is there any particular technology since you started in business, even with your first company or coming out of school and starting your own business, what was the first gadget or software that you felt really had a significant impact on your business? Was there anything at all?
I would say two things. One, historically speaking, probably the iPhone. I just live off of my iPhone, and it keeps on getting better. And, no matter where I am, I can always, either schedule a meeting or get a meeting done or read an attachment. It's not really great for content creation, but in my position, a lot of times, most of my job is reviewing information that other people are creating. So it's an invaluable tool, 7/24 to be able to have that information, especially in combination with things like Dropbox and others. As far as real business impact, I would say a tool that we found called Zoom.us is probably one of the most important tools we've come up with at nCryptedCloud, because it really allows us to have a rich user experience with our clients and support our customers that are all over the world without us necessarily having to physically go there. And I would say until we started using Zoom, having connections through Skype or through WebEx or through GoToMeeting or through Google Hangouts, it just wasn't reliable. The quality was very choppy. You couldn't necessarily, the update speed was not very good. Latency issues, especially once you went overseas, on either side of the pond, so to speak, became very, very problematic and pretty much guaranteed it wouldn't work. And when you have sort of a choppy connection, and when you have, when the screen isn't refreshing when you're doing screen sharing, it really distracts the end user from the point of the conversation and becomes very disruptive. And so you find yourself having to travel more often. I'm proud to say that our first two customers in the UK, very large institutions. This is public information. So one is Imperial College was our first customer, and our second customer is University of Manchester out there, very large, prestigious universities. We've never visited. We closed the deal, we made the deal, in that environment. We've supported them throughout their deployment without really, visiting on site. And that just would not have been possible. To put it at odds with my last company, Vertices, I don't think I made a sale without visiting a customer face-to-face, at least once. So it's made a huge impact in the business in terms of efficiency. definitely saving my back from those airplane seats, and really, as you said, increasing efficiencies of doing business today.
Thank you for telling me that, because interestingly enough, and I've posted this on other interviews, we are right now on Zoom. And this entire experience would really not be capable the way I would like it to be unless we were using Zoom. So I completely agree. It is about the communication. It is about the security of that communication, and also the consistency and confidence knowing that we can get those things done. So I'm getting at that. Obviously, you love the iPhone. Is there any other gadget that you always have with you, like a must-have that you have with you, or is it just basically the iPhone?
I would say that's my main thing is my iPhone. A credit card and an iPhone is all I need.
A lot of people say that about their credit card as being a gadget.
Well, hopefully, if this NFC stuff really takes off, it'll just be the iPhone. I won't need my credit card anymore either.
That's what it seems, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, I wanted to say thank you so much for your time, Nick, for taking your time out of your busy day. Again, for anybody that has any need to understand, to learn, to increase the security and encryption of their existing service with Dropbox and obviously future offerings, please go to www.nCryptedCloud.com. You can also find the link on the site just below the video. And for all of your needs in technology and app reviews, go to www.AdvzrTek.com. Thank you so much again, Nick.
Bryan, thank you for having me. This was wonderful, and hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Awesome. Be well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.